Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Uncork Corner podcast. I'm Nick. With me, as always, is my co-host Bianca, and we're excited to welcome back returning guest Michael Oxen from Night Shift Brewery, one of my favorite local breweries for sure, and one that I frequent a lot. So, Michael, why don't you reintroduce yourself and tell us a little update about what's been going on?
Sure. Yeah. Thanks for having me, guys. My name is Michael. I'm one of our three founders of Night Shift. If you don't know us, we're out of Everett, Massachusetts. We're actually celebrating our 10th year in business this coming March. I mean, it's like crazy to say it's been 10 years because it feels like it's been less than a year sometimes. But yeah, it's been a wild ride, and excited to talk.
That's great. Yeah. And you guys have been growing like crazy in this last couple of years, especially. I know you just opened a new location with the launch of the Encore. I saw the brew pub recently in there pop up.
Yeah.
So that's going on. You guys had your hard seltzers coming out, the cider. So you guys are really expanding. Like we talked about the coffee, some delicious coffee that you guys roast. So yeah, doing a lot and really growing. Why don't you tell us, we'll take a little detour here and talk about that new brew pub that you opened up in Encore.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's a sweet location, sweet team over there. Um, I should be clear, it is run by the Encore team. So it's tons of night shift beer over there, but it's more than just our beer. And we don't actually operate it ourselves. It's operated by them, but like it's got, owls all over the place and tons of night shift beer on tap.
Yep.
Some of the best food around too, like amazing dishes. They got a really good culinary team over there.
Yeah, the Encore has a lot, and I can personally say that if I was at the casino, that is definitely a beer that I would love to drink. I know a lot of people are spirit drinkers, and I don't find that there's always great beer selection. So to know that Night Shift is there is definitely a win for all of us
Yeah,
Boston folk.
yeah, it's awesome. You know, I think they've been, thinking about what they're offering over there and how do they keep a mix of like new exciting stuff that maybe people haven't heard of and also offering some local brands that, everyone around town kind of knows. So getting the owl in there, I think was a pretty big feature of some of the changes they've made within the last year.
Definitely. And I mean, you said it yourself, Everett, you guys were right down the street there with the original tap room and just really featuring you and using, your brand and everything to show that they're keeping it local and not just bringing in some random stuff. I thought was really cool. So I'm glad
Yeah,
to
it's
see
pretty
that in
good.
there.
They're good people.
So tell us a little bit about some beers that we might find on tap right now. So you guys obviously have your staples, your rotating ones that you guys bring back all the time. I know one of my favorites that I always see around stores, the 87. I have that one in my fridge right now. And then you've got Santilli, Whirlpool. Those are the basics. But are there any other, current ones that are brand new or ones that you've been really excited about?
Yeah, we actually just I'll hit on a couple. I would say like the biggest new one is Fluffy. And it's a beer that we produced in small batches back in like 2016, 2017. Um, and basically we didn't have enough really good hops to make big batches of it. So we'd always run out. Like it was one of those beers that we'd sell out of in, hours. And it was like, we'd make a small amount and it'd be gone. And we'd make a small amount and it'd be gone. And it was awesome because people loved it, but it was frustrating because there was never enough. We've been fortunate that over the last couple of years, we've locked ourselves into some really good hops contracts and gotten ourselves access to hops that would produce that kind of beer in bigger batches. And so this year we were pumped to introduce Fluffy or reintroduce Fluffy to people. And it's shipping out like all over the state and it's going to be part of our year-round lineup. So as opposed to like taproom only, there's 50 cases, come and get it while it lasts. It's all over Massachusetts and beyond into a few other states, and we're going to try and make it every month of the year.
So isn't that part of a little family of beers that you do? Because I know one that I've had over the past couple of years is Fluffinity that I've seen all
Yeah,
around. So you guys have a few in that lineup, right?
yeah, they're all sort of like hazy hoppy beers. So Fluffy is a hazy IPA, Fluffinity hazy IPA. We have Fluffier, which is a hazy double IPA, Fluffiest hazy triple IPA, and then our small version, like the hazy pale is Little Floof. Um, and so right now the like sort of mainstay is going to be Fluffy for 2022, but we'll probably bring, those other ones in smaller batches. It's just we're trying to keep ourselves at least slightly focused on one brand going into the year.
Yep, definitely.
And
And
then
I know, oh, go ahead.
go ahead.
I was just gonna say, I know I have here one that I haven't tried yet, but I found at the store actually last night called Shades On Sour IPA.
Nice.
And I know
Sour
this is
IPA.
one that Bianca would like. She's a big fan of her sour beer. So I'm gonna crack this one open. This is gonna be the first one I try today. And then I picked up
Nice.
another one called Haze Maze, the double dry hop double IPA that I was really excited about when I saw. So I'm gonna be
That's
cracking these
awesome.
two to try today.
Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, Haze Maze is sweet.
I
Go
have
ahead,
to say
Bianca.
that your sours are by far my favorite. I love them. I think I like all of your beers for the most part, but when it comes down to it, if I was at the brewery or if I was out somewhere, I would order a sour just because I think you guys do a really good job with the flavors.
Nice.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, the other two I was going to hit on was going to be Haze Maze and our new sour. So I'll just hit it quickly. Haze Maze is a rotating double IPA, so a double dry hop double IPA. So what's cool about this is the batch you have now is a unique recipe. We probably won't brew it again. We use, limited hops and limited availabilities. We throw those into the beer, create something special and unique. 2 months later, Haze Maze batch, you probably have either batch 1 or batch 2, but batch 3 will be out, and then that'll be a totally different recipe.
I've got batch 2 right here.
Batch 2, yeah. So batch 3 will be next. The base malts stay the same, so it'll still be like an 8% double dry hop double IPA, but we mess around with the hop ratios. So you get, instead of like big hits of apricot and orange, it might be like mango and lime or something. That's all flavors you pick up, not actual fruits you put into the beer, which I can now easily transition into beers that get fruit or sours. Granita Weiss is the one that's out this year to kick off the year. We're going to have 4 big batches of sours this year. And the first one out is called Granita Weiss. And this one's sweet. It's a 6% sour and it has blood orange, guava, and pineapple. So it's like tropical heaven. We figured, some people in January want to be sipping something that they could drink in the summer and like forget about the winter woes. And this felt like a nice one to have out for the stormy weather.
Yeah, definitely. When you can sit inside, maybe by a fire or something, and transport yourself a little bit and feel like you're on a beach when you're drinking something super fruity. Yeah, that's real nice. And then you
100%.
can, yeah, and I see those all year round. So, if that's one of your staple and you really love that lineup, you can always have it, which is really cool.
Sure.
This sour IPA is unbelievable. This is one of my favorite beers that I've ever had. This is the first sour IPA that I've ever had, but having that little sort of it's hard to describe that
it's
little
weird
tang on it on top of the easy crisp drinking IPA is really, really good.
It's a weird beer. I love that beer too, and it's very polarizing. Like I've had people at the tap room be like, "This is disgusting," and that's cool. Like I think some of the most interesting beers are ones that are polarizing and create strong opinions. Some part of me believes that like if you don't have some haters, you're doing something wrong. So I actually like that, it creates lots of love and lots of hate with that kind of beer. But I personally, I'm with you. It's like very thirst quenching and like this weird combination of hoppy and sour.
Yeah. It's almost like a bitterness, like a grapefruit on the back end that's on top of it. It's really good. When you're saying that, I think a lot of people too just haven't really expanded and went down that sour beer route yet. And it really is acquired. When I was first starting out, one of the beers that I tried from you guys was the Weiss, because I really liked, just a nice white, Weiss beer or something like that. And I thought it was going to be the same. I didn't really know about sour beers or anything. I tried, I'm like, oh, what's this? But then, as I've obviously tasted a lot more beers by then, and I've really sort of developed that palate and I enjoy them now, these are ones that I go back to and I found myself getting a lot more often. And just as that sort of change of pace, that I've had tons and tons of great IPAs and double IPAs, but sometimes you just want something different. It's going to hit you different,
Totally.
And one of the things that a Night Shift does really well is interesting flavor mixes. I think you have a lot that come and go in small batches, but also your staples that just combine a really interesting ingredient mix. I think a lot of places stick to, more ingredients that they know people are going to like, and I love that you mix things together. So looking at that Granita Weiss, like those flavors are so cool. You don't always see those in beer.
No.
So it's cool to see that. So I'd be curious, and I don't know if there's like a straightforward answer for this, but how are you coming up with these interesting flavor combinations? And I'm sure there are ones that you try and you're like, absolutely not, never again.
Yeah.
So curious about that process.
Well, we really we focus on a lot of R&D through our Everett facility. So we basically, if you really want to simplify things, we either brew big batches of stuff or small batches of stuff. And if it's a small batch, it goes through the tap room, it goes through our Boston location in Lovejoy, maybe hits like a couple bars in the area who are like willing to be sort of R&D partners, and they know they're getting into something that's sort of an experimental beer. But beyond that, it really doesn't go too much further. And so those are oftentimes, those beers or the small batches are dedicated to recipes that we're like testing out and we're not sure about. So we've done a lot of like use with guava, pineapple, blood orange, a lot of different fruits in small batches. And you just do a lot of learning about ratios and when to add the fruit, which kinds of fruits really work well together, what styles of beer, accept fruit nicely versus it just doesn't work. And once we're pretty confident in something, then we upgrade it to a bigger batch, and that's when it hits like a larger market. So Granita Weiss is a good example of like, we've never actually brewed that exact beer, but we've brewed versions of that with fruits, either those exact fruits or fruits like them in the past. Like I can't say we've used blood orange recently, but we've definitely used oranges, and that's enough overlap. So we've done that kind of stuff, and we were confident now enough in that recipe to say like, all right, let's make a huge batch of it and get it out to Massachusetts, New Hampshire, Rhode Island, etc.
So on the opposite spectrum, getting away from those fruity summery beers, do you have any seasonal dark beers that that fireplace bar sipper right now, something like a big heavy stout or something like that?
Really good timing. So this Sunday, I think it's Sunday, starting Sunday in Everett, and then next week all over at least Massachusetts, we'll be shipping out this beer called Slow Drip, and it's a imperial espresso stout. So it's like thick, velvety, chocolatey coffee beer, like the perfect fireside sipper. It's supposed to mimic like an espresso flavored drink, but the beer version. It's big. It's like 8%. We use our house roasted darkling espresso beans. So it's rich, roasty, and decadent.
I was about to say that we did have you on a little bit ago now. It might have been a year ago.
Yeah.
I think it was longer. That might have been 2020. Yeah, that was pretty soon after we started.
So for everyone listening, if you haven't listened to that original podcast, Nick will link it in the show notes so that you can listen to that one as well. Night Shift Coffee is great. So I'm glad you mentioned that. And I love to hear that you're actually brewing with the coffee. So you're kind of cross combining the different areas of business that you guys are in. Is that the only one that actually uses the coffee, or do you have others as well?
We've done some. Oh man, well, we have a beer called Awake that uses our coffee beans. We've brewed that a bunch in the last few years. And we actually started brewing Awake before we were roasting coffee. And then once we started roasting coffee, we were like, well, Awake gets our own coffee now. And I'm looking back to see what else we've done. Oh, what we did in the fall last year was this beer called Holy Jane. So it's sort of a play on Holy Joe, Joe being often a word used for coffee. So we did Holy Jane, which is our beer version of like a medium regula. So basically like, coffee with milk and sugar. So it's actually a blonde ale. So it pours like, you look at it, it looks like an IPA, a blonde ale with our coffee. We actually put vanilla beans in it, and we put milk sugar in it. So it makes it taste a little bit sweet. And that beer knocked it out of the park. Like that was an R&D beer. We didn't know what was going to happen with it. It was a small batch, and people freaking loved it. That was a cool one. Holy Jane.
And speaking of a medium regular, how do you take your coffee?
I drink it black. I'm like,
okay.
Yeah.
You're right there
I
with
drink
us,
it black.
I think.
Yeah, we're all the same way.
Yeah, I don't judge people that want to put creamer or milk, whatever. Like, you do your thing. I personally, I don't know. I like that bitterness, and I like it like that.
Yeah, we're in the unusual Boston group of non-medium regulars.
very much.
So when you're adding the coffee to the beer to add that flavor, at what point do you add it? Is it in the initial like fermentation, or is it more like a finishing addition?
Finishing.
Finishing.
Yeah, if you add it during fermentation, it's like you'll mess up the beer. And there's no sugar that you want to ferment out. So some of the fruits, when we add them, we actually do add them like as it's winding down fermentation. If you add fruit post fermentation, if it doesn't re-ferment with the fruit in it, you basically end up having extra sugar in the beer that could re-ferment in your can and create a can bomb, which nobody wants. So best avoided. But coffee, you basically treat it like you would. It's basically like cold steeped.
Got it. And pretty soon we got the Winter Olympics coming up. Do you have any special edition beers that you're going to be releasing along with that, or in the next couple of weeks?
It's a good question. We don't have any Olympic beers, but maybe we should. When does it start? Is it too late?
I think it's first, second week of February. I know
Okay.
a lot of the snowboarding stuff's going to be like February 5th and 6th.
Yeah,
So you got some time. You might be able to
you
get
got
something
time.
together.
You guys might
Take
have
something
sparked
else
an
and just
idea.
do a new label from a beer.
Yeah,
You're
exactly.
going.
Well, that's the thing with the small batch stuff. You really can pivot pretty quickly. I mean, we're usually developing labels like 3 to 4 weeks out from when we're labeling the beer, so it's really not too far in advance or too late. We could maybe fit it in. I don't know. You guys, I'll
There
bring
you
it
go.
back to our marketing team. We'll
Yeah.
see.
It'll
I
be
like
the
it.
Uncorked Corner Olympic beer.
Yeah,
Yeah. Well, hey, now that the Patriots are, not
I
doing
know.
so hot, we can just focus on the Olympics. So
Everyone needs something to just distract. Yeah.
Yep.
that's right. So you guys have a lot going on pretty much all the time at your tap room, and obviously it's been kind of a weird couple of years.
Yeah.
What do we have to look forward to in 2022? Anything new that's happening, or are you guys going back to kind of some of that entertainment that you had prior?
So, sorry, what entertainment?
Some of those events that you were doing previously, are you continuing those, or are you launching anything new that you can share with us that maybe our listeners can hop into?
Yeah, right. I mean, I think we're slightly tentative on it launching any like big new programming because we're just so uncertain of like where we'll all be in terms of public events throughout the year. But like, I mean, right now the plan is we want to have some huge music festivals in Everett this summer. And like, we kind of didn't do that much over the last 2 years. So, I mean, we were known for doing some really big music festivals back in like 2019, 2018. So I would say like tentatively those are coming back. And then beyond that, like Oktoberfest, like we'd love to do that again. We successfully pulled it off last year. It was actually really well attended. We had good weather too, so it could mostly be outside. So like that kind of stuff, we're hoping to do the beer gardens again this year. In terms of giant events, I don't know. I mean, we have like, we got yoga every weekend and like that's been really successful. We do, what it is, we've launched comedy nights at Everett. I think they're happening either Tuesdays or Wednesdays. You'd have to check online, but those, I think it's Wednesdays, and those have been really good. Like people come in and just like stand up for half an hour each or something, and like people love it.
That'll be fun. I'll have to come down and see one of those. That sounds
That's
like a
been
great
really
time.
good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Grab some beers, watch some comedy.
Yeah.
Now
Awesome.
that Nick's back in Massachusetts, he has the
That's true.
opportunity.
Yeah, I'm down this.
Oh,
I'm up in
nice.
I'm in Middleton now. I moved. It's
Oh,
I'm
that's
out of
awesome.
Maine, so I'm local again. I can get all your stuff. We were limited up
Nice.
there. We only had the the staples, but now I can get whatever whenever. It's exciting.
And then I guess I would say like on the product side, like a few things coming this summer that I'm pretty excited about. One is Daylight. We're hoping to make bigger batches of this, but we produce sort of like a light series of like light beers, and we're like very blatantly and obviously going after Bud Light and Miller Lite and all those guys, and really trying to like do the craft version of that. Like let's take some market share away from these giant corporations with a better product. So anyway, we produce a beer called Nightlight. It's an American light lager. We produce a beer called Limelight. It's a light lime lager. And now we're hoping to put out Daylight, which is a wheat lager with orange peel. And there's some small batches out in the market right now, but that's like very R&D. But coming into the summer, we're hoping to have 12 packs and like, really go big with that one.
So that one going to be going after like a Blue Moon type of,
Yeah,
style
Blue
of beer,
Moon,
that mass
Shock
market.
Top,
Yeah.
Light Sky, like there's a drinker for that beer, but we think we got a better version that,
Yep.
it won't be for everyone, but there's a drinker that definitely wants that, but also wants to buy something that maybe tastes a little better than what's available and support someone who's local and indie,
Hmm.
as opposed to mega Brazilian corporation that's basically run by accountants.
I think that'll be huge if you guys get into that and you can start, those Bud Light drinkers, if you can take them. I think everyone wants to support local if there's stuff that they could drink and enjoy. When you release those,
I think
do you
that's
do
right.
like, the 12 pack, 12-ounce cans, kind of like the same thing you could get for those people that want to just go pick up a bunch? Yeah.
That's the idea, is like, you got to play on the same terms, and like we try and make it pretty aggressively priced as well. So like it should be like in the same format that you're used to buying for your light beers, and priced within like arm's length of what you typically pay. So
Mhm.
it's not outrageously priced. It's trying to be competitive. It's like a buck or two more on the shelf than the macro guys, but like, so I think most people are willing to pay an extra dollar for a local, better product.
Yep.
And then the other big product we're trying to put out is this beer or it's a seltzer, but we're calling it Pink Drink. And it's just this pink drink that's wildly fruity. It's got all sorts of tropical flavor, and it's just a can of fun.
Wow.
Yeah.
So is it going to be?
In May.
So is it going to be more like a seltzer, or is it going to pour more like a, I don't know, like a fruit punch, like something a little bit heavier?
Something in the middle. We're trying to keep it undefined. We don't want to pigeonhole it.
Yep. It's just the pink drink. That's what it's going to be.
It's just pink drink. Like, don't worry about it.
I don't know if I've ever seen anything like that, so that'll be really interesting to try.
Yeah, it comes from the idea of we had for a while a sour beer on tap at the brewery, Ricky Weiss, which is a raspberry lime sour, and we had like our Hoot hard seltzers on tap, and our staff started combining them, like literally doing half a pour of Ricky Weiss, half a pour of Hoot into the glass, and then mixing it up, and it just was this like slightly tart, refreshing, fruity pink drink, and they just call it Pink Drink, and it was like an insider only thing. Like you'd see, if you'd walk into the tap room in a given like July, you'd see all the staff just with Pink Drink in their hands, and it just became this thing. Like, I'm drinking Pink Drink, and we were like, we got to do something with this. So it is the final product is not actually half sour, half seltzer, because it's just production wise it gets really tricky, but it is trying to mimic that same experience of like tart, fruity, refreshing.
Yeah, I think that'll be big this year. You guys release that coming up towards the summer and stuff. That's going to take off. I can tell.
It's just a ridiculous product, and the can is ridiculous too. It just says Pink Drink. It's got like palm trees on it. It's ridiculously pink. I mean, it looks like a joke, or like it looks like a caricature of a ridiculous product, and I kind of like that. Like,
I know that they had the power of Barstool behind them and everything, but if you think about like the Pink Whitney, how much that took off, that pink lemonade vodka drink,
exactly.
The amount of dudes that are out there on golf courses at games and stuff drinking that. There's definitely a market for it. If you get it and you can get that, especially with such a marketable, like, it's the pink drink. That's what it is.
Right.
Like Pink Whitney's its own thing. This is going to be the pink drink. Like it'll really, I think, take off. I could see a lot of people making that sort of their new thing, because with the market being like so saturated with seltzers and stuff, it's like people are starting. I've seen more and more of it where they were kind of like, all right, yeah, everyone's drinking the seltzers, but now you're seeing more of those craft seltzers. You're seeing people start to differentiate themselves,
for sure,
because people are getting fatigued, which is the basic stuff. They're like, all right, that's enough. Like, let's have something a little bit better. So if you can give them that new thing, and really, I think it'll be really cool.
I'm pretty pumped.
Yep, looking forward to trying that out.
And from cider to beer and wine, you have so much happening all the time. What are some of your favorites to actually drink yourself?
Great question. I mean, I love our wine that we've had out, the Albarino that we put out, might have been like late last winter, but it's just like super refreshing white wine. Like I was super into that. Our farm to cup coffee that we put out, I think it's our most expensive coffee. So I didn't even realize that was the case, because I just grabbed some bags from the roasting table, not thinking about which ones I was grabbing, but I ended up liking the one that cost us the most. But it's this single origin rotating series. But I've loved that series. I think it's one of the best things we've put out in the coffee program. And then on the beer side, I'm pretty boring. I mean, it's not a boring beer, but I love Whirlpool. It's just a beautiful beer. It's hazy and citrusy and peachy, and it's everywhere, but I love it.
No, that's one of my staple beers. In my beer fridge downstairs, I always have, whenever I run out, I always get another 4-pack. It's always sitting in there.
That's awesome. That's what we hear a lot.
Yep. It's such an easy one to have. And no matter what mood you're in, if you drink that, you're going to be satisfied. So
yeah, sure. Whirlpool is one of those ones if you're having a party or you're having some sort of gathering that if you have it in the fridge, people are going to drink it. It's just one of those givens. Cool. And we try really hard. I think part of the reason Nick and I started the podcast is because we really try to highlight local brewers, just craft spirit and winemakers as well, because not as many of those local. But for the most part, we really try to live like that as well. So our fridge always has local beers in it, mostly awesome. From all around New England, but Night Shift is a staple. And I think it is for Nick as well. It's one of the earlier beers that I kind of got into on the craft side. So trying new things. And I can't now that we've tried so much, and Nick probably feels the same way, you can't really go back to commercial beer because it's just so different. The flavors are so much better. And we just, I don't know, just knowing where it comes from and knowing the people behind it is so special.
Yep. I remember basically what my first, I think 3 beers were that were craft beers. They were all Night Shift. One was Whirlpool, and I loved it. One was Santilli, and I wasn't crazy about it at first because it was a little hoppy for me.
Yeah,
because I wasn't really into that yet, but now, now I like it. And the other one was, I believe it was called Traffic Cone.
Oh, yeah.
A white, white and orange stripes on the can. That was my first 3 craft beers that really jumped me into getting out of that, Bud Light, Blue Moon, realm.
Yeah.
So
Traffic Cone had a tangerine peel, I think. And this year, just because, you might as well hear this because it's kind of fun. Right now on shelves, we have out Tangerine Limousine, which is a double IPA that's based on the Traffic Cone recipe.
Oh, interesting. I'll have to go get that one too. Yeah, that seemed very, it's probably similar if I had to put into as the Fluffinity or something like that. That same sort of IPA with the orange, really,
super juicy,
crisp, citrusy, juicy. Yeah, it's a perfect word for it. But yeah, definitely Night Shift and my craft beer experience has been hand in hand.
That's amazing.
Right on each other. And jumping back to the coffee real quick, I'm just curious, that farm to cup coffee that you're talking about, what was the origin on that one that you really liked?
Let me take, I should actually, we've had, so it rotates. So, I mean, I think I'm a sucker for Ethiopian coffee. So I know at least one of them was that, but let's see what we got. I'll have to look. I'm going to get you an answer. I just don't have it. All right. This is the one that I have, or I've been brewing a lot recently. Aquarius. This is Costa Rican, the latest one.
Okay.
And what we really try and do is source these beans as close to the farm level as possible. So you're not paying for too many, middlemen, so to speak. And so these beans were from Aquarius Farm, which is actually the largest contiguous farm in Costa Rica, and carbon neutral since 2016, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, very cool. Yeah, that's actually, I'll have to try that one. That's my wheelhouse, South America. When it comes to beans, that's what I always go for.
Super smooth. I'm well, as an Ethiopian coffee, with that crazy fruity, wildly juicy, blueberry thing going on, I'm into it, but I also probably wouldn't drink that every day. It's not my go-to, but really good, Colombian coffee is I would have that every day of the week.
Nutty, chocolatey, just easy drinker. Always comes out good, especially if you do it in a French press or something. You get a nice rich coffee. Oh, I love it. That's but Costa Rican. So that, I think I have some Costa Rican beans downstairs right now, actually, from a place up in Portland, Maine that roasted them. And it's kind of a little bit of both, where you get that chocolatiness, you get that sort of South American, but there's also a little bit of fruitiness in there, like a cherry on the back. So it's that's probably why it was your favorites, balancing, kind of sitting on the fence there. But exactly. That's something that we have gotten into a lot more for sure since starting the podcast as well and talking to you guys and some other coffee roasters. And once I started paying attention to where the beans are roasted, making sure they're fresh, there's no going back. Everything has to be, it's like
You
nice
can't
and
go
fresh.
back.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
I can't just go buy like a pre-ground bag coffee anymore and be happy. Nope.
We did that.
Between machines and coffee beans and grinding them, Nick is our coffee aficionado. He's got all the knowledge and all the learnings on the coffee, but I'm still not, I don't think, advanced enough.
We just got I just got two more things. I just got a Baratza grinder, the Baratza Encore, which is
nice.
It's a really nice basic like kind of drip coffee grinder. And we also got, for easy everyday coffee, it's like the best thing we bought, one of the super automatic espresso machines from Gaja, the Gaja Cadorna. And being able to wake up, click a button and like click espresso, and it grinds it down and you get like a great espresso right out of the cup. It's probably not as good as if you did, you know, manual and really tweaked it to your taste, but just the ease of it, waking up and being able to have sort of a really craft, like nice quality espresso or espresso drink is awesome. It's really changed our game. Yeah,
for sure.
But that's exciting. But there's something, yeah, I think if I had to choose, even with that and everything, French press is still going to be my go-to. If
Really?
I just love that nice, rich, thick coffee that you get from it. And I feel like you don't get the same thing from anything else, whether it's a drip machine or even one of the espresso ones. It's a different animal with that highly pressurized, but that sort of just immersion, just the beans sitting in the water and nice and, oh, I love it.
That's good stuff.
Yep.
I started doing pour overs in the morning for myself and my wife. We were playing around with different, brewing methods, and she loves what we make in the morning now. So like we're like, if I changed, she'd kill me. So like we're we're in, because she loves it, and I love it as well. And so like it's pour over or bust in our house at this point.
That's good. I have a pour over too. I have a just a basic kettle. I got to get like one of the nice gooseneck ones that you can get the real good pour out. I have a regular one. I like so daintily twisted, so I just get a nice small stream. I try to mimic it, but I do love a pour over too. But it's a different thing. If I'm doing like more of an African coffee or something like that, and I really want to taste the flavors, that's what I'll do.
Brings that out.
If I just want like my breakfast coffee, it's gonna be that espresso machine. I'll make something. Or I'll do like a French press.
I was going to say the same, because Nick bought me the Chemex a while ago, and it makes some incredible coffee. I have definitely loved. I think last time I had your coffee, I used the pour over, and I thought it just like it brings more flavor out. I think it's that slow drip or something. I don't know like the science behind it, but definitely one of my favorites. French press is great, but I find it's a little harder to clean, so I'm lazy. So I go
that's
pour
my
over
reason too.
French press.
Pour over is very easy to clean.
It is. Just dump out the filter.
But,
that's one thing. I'm like a big nerd with my coffee. I make like a spreadsheet, and I'll go through and I'll like every day, or I'll make like, all right, this is the number of beans that I put in. This is the amount of water, so that I can tweak it and see, how it comes out. That's something I have to do with pour over and French press though. I did that back with my drip coffee machine that I just got rid of when we got the new one. I gave it to a friend, but I have to do that with French press so I can really get my ratios down and get them dialed.
Wow.
That's my
You're
next
like on
step.
a next level of geekiness. That's awesome.
I am. I'm the biggest nerd.
You.
I'm an accountant. So it's like,
that's amazing. I think that's so cool. I don't do that, but we have people, a few of our staff that are, that level of dedicated to their coffee as well. And like, it's cool. If you care about it enough, like it's totally worth it, because you can just nerd out.
Yeah. It's one of those things where I think doing that for me is what helped me learn origins and stuff like that. Because instead of just blindly throwing it at like, this coffee's too sour, this coffee's too bitter, whatever, you could play around with it and say, okay, well, this is what these beans taste like. This is what these beans taste like. Let's make these a little stronger. Let's make these a little lighter. And you can really sort of fine tune it. And I think that for me really helped me learn, grind settings and the bean origins and stuff. So I liked it. But it's definitely way beyond. Like my friend that I just gave the coffee maker to, I just like, I'll print out my sheet and give it to him. Like, put these numbers in and you'll be happy.
Well, it's funny. We used to, back before night shift roasting started, we were, just coffee drinkers, and we would our coffee love like began basically, at the coffee table before brew sessions started on the production side. So, in Everett, 6 a.m., we'd all be kind of gathered around making pour overs or whatever. And like the big debates were always over like, what's the best method? What's the best pour over ratio? Like, how many beans, grind setting. So like we ended up having there was this big whiteboard, and you'd have someone write down like, this is the best way to make a pour over. And then like someone else the next day would write like, this is wrong, this is better. And it became just like this giant joke. Like you'd walk by and it would be like, this is not good. Like, and we were just constantly debating like who could make the best cup and what was the best process. And like that level of, geekiness over coffee is what drove us to be like, let's start roasting beans. Like this
Yeah.
is too much fun to walk away from.
Now, is that something that I know, like with the home brewing and stuff, like a lot of people start that way to get into the craft beer. When you decided you were going to take that plunge, how did you go about learning how to roast the beans and really make sure they came out good?
Yeah, I mean, so it wasn't like the beer side where we were like home brewers for 5 years before
Yeah.
anything. I think, we were fortunate enough to have like enough money to purchase like a pretty small production roaster. So it wasn't like an enormous investment for the business. And like we were lucky, we hired someone to basically be our roaster and our educator to us. So I mean, all in like the whole roasting build out was probably like 45K. And that put us in a position to basically roast enough for the year if our projections were right or whatever. So it's not like we started on like a home roasting scale, but we started out as small as you really can on like the wholesale production scale. And we had to find someone that like knew their stuff and could educate us, because we loved the product. We knew enough to know what we wanted to do in the coffee space, but we didn't know enough about like how to make it. So we did have to hire expertise. And I'll say like on the brewing side, we learned that early. Like the three of us ran the business and brewed everything for the first 2 years. When we finally hired someone and then more people who knew a lot more about how to brew beer, our beer got a lot better. So, sometimes you really do need experts to, bring up your game.
Yep. And so this might be ignorance on my part because I've been living in Maine for the past few years. But when it comes to the coffee, do you have any like local distribution on that yet? Or is it just available in your tap room? I know you guys have like pop-ups and stuff, and I've seen those, but are you available in like supermarkets yet?
It's grown significantly. So I would say, up to like, I think it's like roughly 70% of our product now goes out through wholesale. So it's like Wegmans, Whole Foods, like a bunch of different local stores. Like Pemberton Farms is like an awesome partner for us over in Cambridge. And so, I mean, there's a handful of others that I'm Roach Brothers. So like wholesale is becoming a bigger and bigger focus for us as we grow, because it's an interesting channel, because there's actually like there's a lot of roasters out there, but in terms of like local roasters really focused on the kinds of coffee we're focused on, the competition like isn't so wild that it makes it impossible for us to really get our name out there and compete. And I think what we're trying to do is really bridge that gap between the big guys on the shelf. Like, I mean, you see like Pete's Coffee, right? And like they're going after a certain consumer that we're not really targeting. And you have someone like George Howell going after like a specific consumer as well. And I think we're probably somewhere in the middle of that, where it's like we're trying to be really accessible the way that Pete's is, and like appeal to someone that like really wants to that's maybe a little afraid of like the nerdy coffee world. So we make the flavors like kind of simple and like put them right on the bag, and like we make the labels very like personable and illustrative. But we're like super focused on quality beans. Like we're not putting mixer or blender beans in there, and like we're only sourcing really good specialty coffee. So the quality's there. But I would say we don't focus as much on like the origin details and all the specs that like someone like George Howell does, that's appealing to someone who's maybe a little more advanced in terms of their knowledge.
Yep. Definitely. No, I think that's good. And a lot more people, just like with everything, just how kind of craft beer blew up. I think coffee is sort of coming up to that way now, or more people are getting away from the Keurig. They're getting that K-cup fatigue. They're realizing they're really just drinking kind of hot water, and they're starting to everyone's going back to drip
hot
coffee.
water.
Yeah. Everyone's
That's how I
going
really
back to
feel.
drip. Yeah, no, it's no secret. I definitely don't hide how I feel about K-cups and stuff. But yeah, I think more people are going that way, and the more people that get grinders and, you know, good coffee making stuff and stop just buying, you know, I don't know if anyone buys like a Folgers or a Maxwell House anymore, unless you're maybe like a big business, like just cranking out coffee after coffee. But yeah, I like to see more people, and I'm doing the same thing I do with the beer too. It's like, all right, just try this, just try this. Like, I'm a big Scotch guy, and I, you know, friends that just getting into whiskey, and they're like, oh, but I'm only bourbon. I'm like, okay, well, try this Scotch. And they're like, wow, that's awesome. I'm like, see, it's like people get pigeonholed. They're like, okay, Scotch is Johnny Walker Red or Johnny Walker Black, and they don't think like, you know, they might have tried a craft coffee from like Ethiopia or India or something, and it was really earthy, and like, oh no, I don't want that. But then if you give them something from a Colombia that's like a really good coffee that has those easy drinking chocolatey notes, and you can put that in front of a lot of consumers, people are gonna catch on, and you know, it's gonna take off.
Well, you don't know what you don't know, right? So if you haven't been exposed to enough, like you're just thinking like that, you sort of pigeonhole yourself into a corner. And I do this a lot with light beer, where I'll meet someone and they're like, oh, you know, I only drink Bud Light. Like, that's all I'm looking for. And I'll just be like, you should just try Night Light, because it is not that different than Bud Light, but it's way better. And you know, I've like literally given it to people at parties, and they're like, okay, I'll always buy this now. Like, it's a very easy conversion, because it's like, it's what I like, but it's an even better version of that. And what we often see is then that same person is like, oh, night shift, like, okay, I'm a Night Light drinker. I trust night shift, so like maybe I'll try the Whirlpool next, right? And then they become a Whirlpool drinker, and then they become a Fluffy drinker, and then they're like geeking out on sours and like imperial stouts, and it like that's the path.
That's exactly the path. That's the progression. Yeah.
And that's the best part, I think, about being able to taste things in a tap room, because it's so hard to, you know, for people to justify, like, I'm just going to buy this 4-pack and I have no idea what it tastes like. And, you know, Nick and I do that because we'll share them and we'll hand them out to other people. But when it comes down to like a normal consumer, I think being able to go in and actually taste of, you know, a whole flight of different beers, it makes a big difference, because if you don't like something, then you don't really feel bad about it because you didn't spend all this money on it. And you get to find things that you like that you probably never would have tried, because you would never have spent the money on it at the store. Then once you kind of figure it out, you feel more confident as a consumer going and buying those flavors.
Totally.
And you'll learn, you know, what you like and what you don't like, so that, you know, it'll help you. So like you were talking about, you know, those little steps, you know, that Night Light to Whirlpool, you know, if it's just adding a little bit extra, you know, maybe a little bit different, it's okay, I get it, it's interesting. And then you go a little further, and then eventually you're on to double and triple IPAs that are, you know, sour beers, and it'll get you there. And it doesn't take as long as you might think. I feel like once you get started, it's like, all right, next. What's next?
Awesome. Well, is there anything else that you would like to share with our listeners before we close? We loved having you on again. As we've said numerous times, big fans and personal consumers all year round. But is there anything you'd like everyone to know?
What else do I want everyone to know? Let's see.
You gotta let everyone know about that Olympic beer that's coming out.
The Olympic, the Olympic beer that's coming out. And then, I mean, this is, what is it? It's a little bit further out, but like coming out in March, we're putting out a beer called Strongest Female Lead. It's a triple IPA with pomelo zest, and like a pretty good portion of the proceeds from that beer are going to go to BARC, which is, I think it's Boston Area Rape Crisis Center. So it's like it's a good cause beer. We're going to send it out all over the state and beyond. But I would say, like, you know, if you want to buy a beer that tastes delicious and, you know, makes you feel good doing, like, putting some money towards something good, that's like I'm pumped about that one. The artwork is actually done by a female artist out of California, and she's done a bunch of art for us before. So art by a female artist. The recipe was come up with by all of our female brewers, and then it's brewed by our female brewers as well. So the whole focus is on, like, you know, it's Women's History Month, and International Women's Day is the day it releases.
Awesome. Yeah, well, we look forward to trying all the stuff we talked about today. Hopefully a lot of people get that one, and we'll see a lot of your stuff coming up in stores and around coming up. So thank you
Awesome.
again for taking the time to talk to us. We had a great time, and we'll talk to you again soon.
Cool. Thank you guys for having me.
Cheers. Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Cheers.